Okay, welcome back to you guys. We're going to get restarted here with our course, helping you guys to understand this next topic of enlightenment. What is enlightenment? This is where you can understand this mental state more deeply that the Buddha taught, that he's guiding you to be able to obtain. Because it's kind of like if somebody came to you and said, hey, would you like to go to Chiang Rai? The first thing you'd probably say is, well, what's Chiang Rai? Like, what is that? And then by somebody sharing with you what it is, where it's at, what things are going on there, you're like, I think I might be interested to go to Chiang Rai. That'd be pretty fun. And now, in terms of navigating your way to Chiang Rai, you'll be able to more easily navigate your way to it because this person would have shared with you, oh, it's a city in the north. You got to go through the mountains, blah, 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 blah. And now you can more easily navigate your way to it. And then once you arrive to Chiang Rai, you'll actually know that you're there. So that's the reason why it's helpful to understand this mental state up front when you're first getting started on the path, because by understanding what this mental state is, you'll be able to make the decision that this is something that you're interested in obtaining. And then you'll be able to more readily navigate your way to it. And once you've arrived, you'll know that you're actually enlightened. So I'm going to share with you the ins and outs of what enlightenment is so that you can understand it. As we go, just like always, you guys are welcome to ask any and all questions, and understand that as I share with you this topic of what is enlightenment, at the end of this discussion, you're going to know more about what enlightenment is at the end than you do right now. But just understand that at the end of our discussion, you're not going to understand everything about enlightenment. That I can help you to understand a great deal about what enlightenment is and the ins and outs of it, but you're not going to understand 100% of it. It's kind of like if I was to sit here and explain to you what chocolate ice cream tastes like, and you've never actually tasted chocolate ice cream before, you'd understand more about what chocolate ice cream tastes like at the end of our conversation, but you're not going to fully understand what it tastes like until you taste it yourself. So it's the same thing. That I can explain to you all day long what enlightenment is, but you're not going to fully understand it until your mind's getting closer and closer to it and you start experiencing more and more of the qualities of what enlightenment is. So feel free to ask any and all questions as we go, but just understand you're not going to understand everything by the end of our conversation, but you're surely going to understand more by the end of our conversation than you do right now. So enlightenment is the ultimate goal of the teachings of the Buddha. That's what he's guiding you to be able to obtain. The teachings of the Buddha aren't about some afterlife, believing a bunch of things and then hoping something good happens when you die. It's about learning, growing, and developing in this life so that you can experience a peaceful and joyful mind in this life. You can get to the ideal life now in this life, and you'll be able to see that you're gradually making your way to it by training your mind. So he's not teaching you a bunch of beliefs that will sometime in the future after this life amount to some kind of beneficial result. He's teaching you how to train your mind now so you can experience the benefits now in this life. So first, let's just talk about what enlightenment is. It's a mental state that is attainable during this life or at death, where the mind is completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. It's a permanent mental state that once you attain this mental state, your mind will never again experience the unenlightened qualities ever again. The mind will have eliminated 100% of all discontentedness. You will no longer experience anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of those things have been eliminated because you've eliminated the causes and conditions that are producing them within your mind. Your mind will be stable and steady. It'll be unshakable. The mind will be calm and relaxed, but yet attentive and alert. Sometimes when we think calm and relaxed, we're like, I'm so calm and relaxed, right? But that's not what the enlightened mental state is the mind is calm and relaxed, but it's attentive, it's alert, it's sharp, right? So this is an important distinction to be able to understand. So you can attain this mental state during this life, or you can attain it at death. And by the time you get to enlightenment, not only will you be experiencing that enlightened mental state, but there's not going to be rebirth where you're coming back into the world over and over and over again. Now, everything in the teachings of the Buddha, it's independently verifiable, including the cycle of rebirth. Right now, you might not have an understanding of how to verify the cycle of rebirth. You might be believing that you only have one life because maybe you can't remember your previous lives. But as you start getting rid of this pollution out of the mind, you might have the opportunity where you actually start observing your past lives. And this is something that you don't really need to focus on right up front at the beginning of your journey to enlightenment. So I suggest you set aside the cycle of rebirth, but just know that as you progress on this journey, by the time you get to volume 11 of our book series in chapter 105, I have 17 different criteria of how you can independently verify the cycle of rebirth. But it's in volume 11, chapter 105 for a reason, because you don't need this information right up front. But just understand that the teachings of the Buddha, he's guiding you to this enlightened mental state so that you can get to peace and joy now in this life, but also so you don't need to come back into the world continuously and experiencing these difficulties and struggles over and over and over again. So this work that you're doing is accumulating to these results of peace and joy in this life, where the mind's completely stable, steady, and unshakable, but also so that you don't need to come back and experience the difficulties and struggles over and over and over again. And the way that an individual has gotten to enlightenment is that they've freed their mind of something called craving, anger, and ignorance. These are the high-level way to understand the pollutions in the mind. On Wednesday morning, I'm going to explain to you in more detail what is craving, anger, and ignorance. So these are essentially the three poisons, or the three unwholesome roots, or the three fires. And you're going to learn about these on Wednesday morning. It's a high-level way of referring to the pollutions in the mind. The most detailed level to be able to describe these pollutions is called the 10 fetters. And I'm going to introduce you to those here in a moment. But on Wednesday morning, I'll explain it to you as part of the three poisons, or the three unwholesome roots of craving, anger, and ignorance. So if enlightenment is this mental state where you're experiencing the peace and the joy, the path to enlightenment is a purification of the mind, where you're training the mind and uprooting the causes and conditions that are producing the discontent feelings. You're eliminating the conditions that keep the mind in the unenlightened state. So the path to enlightenment is a purification of the mind. And once the mind is enlightened, the mind has actually been purified. That's why it's experiencing the peace and joy and all these other qualities. Sometimes people describe enlightenment as happiness or ultimate bliss. I tend to not describe it that way, because you know what happiness is. You've experienced happiness many times, but your happiness right now in the unenlightened state is conditional happiness, that based on some condition, you will be happy. Like if it's sunny outside, maybe you will be happy. Or if you get a raise at work, your boss gives you more money, maybe you will be happy. If you get a new car, maybe you will be happy. Or you get a new house, now you will be happy. Or if you can look at your mobile phone, maybe you will be happy, right? These are conditional feelings, that you will be happy if some condition is met. The happiness that you're experiencing in the enlightened mental state, it's beyond this. It's unconditional happiness. Because with conditional happiness, you can only be happy when certain conditions are met. If my bank account is here, then I'll be happy, right? Or if my mom and dad do this, then I'll be happy. But if those things don't occur, you can't be happy. So your happiness actually shrinks when you have conditional happiness, because the idea of all these different conditions being true is very rare, right? Like if my mom and dad do this, if my boss does this, if the weather is this, if my money in my bank account is this, if I have this kind of house and this kind of car, if my friends do this, if my brothers and sisters do this, next thing you know, your ability to be happy shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. This is why some people are old and grumpy, because they have all these expectations in their mind, all these things that they want that they never got, and now they're experiencing this grumpiness. So that's called conditional happiness, that you can only be happy if certain conditions are met. An enlightened being is beyond this. They're experiencing unconditioned happiness, unconditioned joy, where their mind's just always happy. So sometimes people describe enlightenment as happiness or ultimate bliss. What they're typically describing is something referred to as the jhanas. You guys are going to see here in a moment that there's 4 stages of enlightenment. And prior to you getting to the first stage of enlightenment, there's these 4 preliminary phases that the mind goes through. They're referred to as jhanas. This is where you're experiencing enhanced qualities of mind. And when you get into the first jhana, there can be this excitement that comes into the mind, because the quality of your mind in your jhanas, when you're in the jhanas, is like night and day compared to what it was when you were off the path to enlightenment. So oftentimes when people get into the jhanas, they experience that bliss, that excitement, that thrill, that euphoric feeling, and they think they're actually enlightened. So there's people in the world who think they're enlightened, and they're going around describing what they're experiencing as enlightenment, but they're not actually enlightened yet. So this is where sometimes you will hear people tell you that enlightened beings still get sad, or they still get frustrated, or they still get agitated or annoyed. This is someone who's not understanding what enlightenment is. They're most likely in the jhanas experiencing this bliss from time to time, thinking that they're enlightened, but they're not enlightened yet, so they still experience sadness and frustration and irritation, and they're describing what they experience as enlightenment, not realizing that they're not enlightened yet. So people who describe enlightenment as ultimate bliss aren't really experiencing enlightenment because they're not understanding that that's not enlightenment yet. The mind will be calm and relaxed, but yet it'll be attentive and alert. You won't have this extremes, highs, and these lows when you're in the enlightened mental state. The mind's peaceful and joyful, and it's a permanent mental state that you experience. You're experiencing unconditioned happiness, where your mind's just always joyful. It's bright, it's cheerful, it's glad, it's radiant, it's uplifted, and there doesn't need to be any condition met in order for that to occur. It's just you wake up, your mind's bright and cheerful and uplifted. You're just here, you just woke up, and now all day long the mind's cheerful and bright and uplifted, and then as you're going to sleep at night, it's still bright and cheerful and uplifted. There doesn't need to be any condition met in order for that to occur. Okay, so this is what enlightenment is. In terms of the advantages of getting to enlightenment, is that your mind's going to be peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. It's a permanent mental state. You will never again experience any discontent feelings. All these discontent feelings here, you're going to hear me say this over and over and over again, they're completely eliminated from the mind. You no longer experience those. It's physically impossible for an enlightened being to experience anger. Even if they tried to make themselves angry, they wouldn't be able to do it, right? Because the causes and conditions that produce it have been uprooted out of the mind. It's just physically impossible for an enlightened being to experience any of these feelings. The mind will have a high degree of focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory. Because when you uproot those pollutions out of the mind will now perform optimally. When you have these pollutions in the mind, you can't have focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory. Your mind will be easily distracted, right? So once you get rid of these pollutions, you'll be able to be focused and concentrated, have clarity and deep memory at all times. Then you'll notice that you're able to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful towards all beings. Right now, you might find that to be difficult. There's probably certain people that you find it really easy to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful to them. But these types of people over here, it's really hard for you. That's because your mind has these pollutions. So you might be impolite, unkind, unfriendly, and disrespectful in those situations. But an enlightened being, they can be polite, kind, friendly, respectful to everybody. They have deep wisdom about the world around them, and they fully train their mind to overcome the difficulties and challenges that it is plagued with on a day-to-day basis in the unenlightened state. An individual who's enlightened, they're no longer causing harm to other beings. In the unenlightened state, your mind has a certain lack of wisdom where you'll still be causing harm to beings, and you may not even realize that that's what you're doing. You're doing it inadvertently. So by the time you get to enlightenment, you're not causing any harm to others, and therefore harm isn't coming back to you. You're only experiencing wholesome results in your day-to-day life, that you're not experiencing unwholesome results coming back to you. You'll notice that because you're able to be so polite and kind and friendly and respectful, your personal and professional relationships are really blossoming, right? They're at ease. You have harmony in all your relationships. That might not be true right now today. You might actually get in arguments from time to time. You might be frustrated and agitated with different people in your life. Typically, the people that are closest to you, you'll have the most challenges with. Your parents, your life partner, your children, people like this, your siblings. You'll have a lot of difficulties in those relationships. And you'll understand why tomorrow. But by the time you get to enlightenment, you won't have that anymore. Your relationships will all be harmonious. They'll be at ease. Your mind will be easily able to function in these relationships with harmony. And you'll be able to learn how to do that, and you'll gradually see that happening in your day-to-day life. So this is the advantages of being in this enlightened mental state. And there's others as well that I don't have up here, but these are just some of them. In terms of how to attain enlightenment, there's some core central teachings that you're going to need to know and practice in order to be really making your way to enlightenment. And you're going to be learning pretty much all of these throughout this course this week. That you're going to need to know the 3 universal truths, the 4 noble truths, the Eightfold Path, and the 5 precepts. I'm going to teach you all of those as part of this course. Then you're going to need to know and practice the Brahma Viharas. I don't teach it in this course. I kind of expose you to them, but I don't teach it until the next course, which is called Harmony and Relationships. I teach it in the group learning program. It's in chapter 14 of this first book, but I just don't teach it in this course because there's other things that you're focused on. But there's other opportunities for you to learn this in the various programs that I share. Then the 10 fetters is something that ultimately you're going to need to know inside and out. Today, I'm going to just introduce you to them, but by the time you get to enlightenment, you will know each one of these fetters in detail. There's a retreat that I teach each August where I spend about an hour to an hour and a half on each individual fetter. These are the pollutions that are in the mind. So you're going to need to know what they are, the symptoms of them, how to eliminate them, and how to know that you've actually eliminated them. And you'll learn that as you gradually progress on the path. But when you're first getting started, you just typically start with understanding the core fundamental teachings. But everything that the Buddha taught in one way or another is helping you to eliminate these pollutions of the mind. Up front, all you need is just kind of an introduction to them. But then later, as you continue on your journey, you'll get more deeply into them to understand what they actually are. Then you're going to need to know the 7 factors of enlightenment, and you're going to need extensive meditation training. You're going to need to be meditating regularly. And when you're learning these teachings, it's important that you're learning, examining, and investigating the teachings intellectually, that you're then reflecting on the teachings to independently verify if they're true or they're false. Then you're practicing his teachings, integrating them into your life, and that's where the real transformation is occurring. You're not believing his teachings. You need to get to wisdom. And the only way you can get to wisdom is if you don't believe the teachings. So don't believe other people, but don't believe me either. You need to be able to see the truth for yourself. You're not a devotee or a follower. That's not what a person on the path to enlightenment is. They're not a follower. You're not following anybody. You're an independent practitioner looking to find wisdom. And a teacher is essentially like a tour guide, pointing out for you the things that you need to learn and understand. But it's you doing the work to actively learn and understand the teachings. And you'd like to do that through the intellectual learning, through the reflection to independently verify them, and then through the practice to be able to integrate them into your day-to-day life. So as you're learning these teachings, don't believe anything about the teachings, whether it's from me or anybody else. Never believe, because with belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it because someone convinced you to believe it, or you convinced yourself to believe it. But to get to enlightenment, you need to get to wisdom. That's what's going to ultimately allow you to train your mind and actually get to this enlightened mental state. So do you guys have any questions on anything that I've been sharing so far up to this point? You have a question? Yes, sir. Matthew, right? Yeah.
Hello. You talked about when you are enlightened, you are not able to cause other people to harm other people. What kind of harm could be since when we get annoyed or angry with other people, it's not their fault, but it's in our mind. What kind of harm could we cause to others?
So when you can't cause other people to be discontent, like you can't cause someone else to be angry or frustrated or sad or any of those other feelings. If somebody's experiencing those feelings, they're causing it themselves. They don't necessarily know that, but they are causing it themselves. But you can cause someone harm. Causing someone harm is to harm their physical body, their material possessions, or their reputation. And in the unenlightened state, you will be causing harm to people to a certain degree because you lack wisdom of these natural laws, and you will tend to cause harm. And now as an unenlightened being, as you cause harm and you put that out, this harm comes back to you. And this is one of the reasons why it's such a struggle in the unenlightened state, because you're constantly going around making decisions, thinking that you're making all the best decisions in the world. And next thing you know, you've got this harm coming back to you. And you're like, whoa, what happened here? I don't deserve this. But you don't realize that it's your own decisions that's leading to that. So when you gain this wisdom and you train your mind, you understand what it causes harm and what doesn't cause harm. And now you're not causing any harm anymore. You're only making wise decisions, and you get to the point where there's no harm coming back to you whatsoever. And your mind isn't even angry or sad or frustrated or irritated. Your mind's just completely peaceful. So the harm that an unenlightened being could cause would be to be causing physical harm, harm to material possessions, or like to someone's reputation, like gossiping and slandering, things like this. But by the time you get to enlightenment, you wouldn't be doing any of those kinds of things. Okay. All right. So now let's talk some more. Let's help you to understand what's called the 10 fetters. Okay. When the Buddha discovers the pollutions in the mind, he refers to them as fetters, because during the lifetime of the Buddha, if you were a criminal and they were trying to keep you confined to a certain area, they would attach a fetter to your ankle. What a fetter is a shackle and a chain and a ball. And now they would keep you in a field, where today we put prisoners in jail cells or prison cells. That's how we keep people confined to a certain area. Where during the lifetime of the Buddha, they just attached a fetter to your ankle and kept you out in a field. So when the Buddha discovered these pollutions, he refers to them as fetters, because it's keeping the mind trapped in the unenlightened state. And just like a prisoner, when they release that shackle off their ankle, they're free. The same thing is true with the mind, that when you get rid of these fetters, these pollutions, your mind's free. Because when you're angry and sad and frustrated and feeling guilt and shame and fear, your mind's not free. It's bound up. It's having difficulties, right? So when you get rid of these fetters, your mind is free, that there's nothing that can hurt your mind any longer. Your mind's never going to experience painful feelings ever again by the time you get to enlightenment. So your mind is now free, completely peaceful, and completely joyful. So that's why they're referred to as the 10 fetters. Or one way to think about them is pollutions or taints or defilements. You'll hear people refer to them in this way. So I'm going to introduce you to each of these and also share just a little bit of the solutions so you understand how an individual eliminates these. But at this point, it's just an introduction, just to help you kind of understand what the Buddha is guiding you to eliminate. And then later on, you'll be able to get more deeply into understanding these. Okay, so this first one is called personal existence view. What this is where the mind has the confusion or the misunderstanding that this body or this mind is you. The mind will cling to a self-image or a self-identity, thinking that this is who you are as a person. So, for example, if you've ever been in a public situation, in a social situation, where you've spilled something on your clothing and now you were embarrassed, that was your personal existence view. You were clinging to this self-image, wanting other people to perceive you in a certain way. And you can only be happy if you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived. And now when you've got this spaghetti sauce or chocolate ice cream on your clothes, you're not being perceived the way you want to be perceived. So now you have this embarrassment in your mind. Or say you've ever looked in the mirror and you saw a pimple or a wrinkle or a mole, or you saw some gray hair, or you started losing your hair. If you were shaken up by that when you saw the mirror, that was your personal existence view. Your mind was confused and having misunderstanding, thinking that this body is who you are, and you're clinging to it, wanting it to be permanent and wanting other people to perceive you in a certain way. If you've ever stood in front of your closet and you thought, who am I going to see today? And how do I want to look? That shirt, that favorite shirt I've got, that's the one I want. And you grab that shirt and you put it on. And you're like, no, that's not how I want to look. And then you grabbed another shirt and you're like, no, that's not how I want to look. And you grabbed another one. You're like, all right, perfect. Now I can go outside today. Right now you felt comfortable because you felt like you were going to be perceived the way you want to be perceived. Or if you were like me when I was a kid, I used to get out gel and mousse and I'd run it through my hair and I try to get every little hair in exactly the right spot. And then I couldn't feel comfortable to go out to school unless I had every little hair in exactly the right spot. I would do this sometimes for so long, I'd miss the school bus on the way to school, right? So this is personal existence view, clinging to this body, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And you can only feel comfortable in that situation. Then there's a self-identity that the mind will cling to because of this personal existence view. This is like, I am Chinese or I am Brazilian. This I am. around your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation. You can cling to any number of things of who you think you are as a person. And now if you cling to this identity of I am American, for example, you might be in a restaurant and 2 tables over, someone's talking and they're like, all Americans are lovely and kind and warm and gentle. And you're like, wow, they're talking about me. I'm American, right? But now 2 tables over, somebody's saying something degrading and disparaging about the country that you come from. And if you identify with I am this, now when they're talking about that, you're going to be frustrated and angry and annoyed because you think they're talking about you. Or say you cling to the idea of some job or occupation that you have. I am a police officer. Well, now, as long as you're doing that job, you feel great. But 10 years later, when you retire, or you quit the job, or you get fired, or you get injured and you can't do the job anymore, you'll feel like less of a person because your mind is identifying with I am this. And now you're not doing that anymore, and your mind can feel unwhole. Right? There's any number of things that you can cling to as who you think you are as a person. Your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation. We're going to actually go into this in more detail tomorrow, and I'm going to help you understand this in more detail. But just understand that this is something that your mind has as a pollution, and you can see some of the symptoms that I just described for you, that you can see that your mind has this pollution. But there's a way to eliminate this, and I'll teach it to you more as you progress. Then there's something in the mind called doubt. What doubt is where you have doubt about the teachings of the Buddha and the ability of them to attain enlightenment. And typically when people come to the path to enlightenment, they have doubt. They'll have doubt about the Buddha, about the teachings, about the community that you're part of. You might have doubt about your teacher and their ability to help you and guide you to enlightenment, or you might have doubt about your own ability to get to enlightenment, whether or not you can actually do it or not. And if you have doubt about that, it's going to hinder you from being able to get to enlightenment. And it's common for people to have doubt when they come to the path to enlightenment. But you don't get rid of your doubt through blind belief or faith or anything like that. The way you get rid of your doubt is through investigation and examination of the teachings. When you investigate and examine the teachings of the Buddha, when you learn them intellectually, then you reflect on them to independently verify them. And then you practice them day to day, implementing them into your life. As you start seeing the changes to the condition of your mind in your life, you'll know that these teachings are helping you to improve, because you're going to see situations where you were once angry and frustrated and irritated, and you're in those same situations and you're not irritated anymore. You're peaceful and joyful, and you'll know that it's these teachings that are actually leading to this. So the way you get to the elimination of your doubt is through learning and examining the teachings, investigating the teachings. And as you see the transformation to your mind in your life, gradually, slowly but surely, you'll get to the point where you don't have any doubts anymore. So what I encourage you to do is, if you have doubt, which it's common that people have doubt when they're first getting started, is harness this doubt. You can actually turn it into an inquisitive mind. When I first started out, I was like, yeah, I doubt the teachings of the Buddha. I don't know at that time whether they lead to enlightenment or not. And you know what? I'm going to roll up my sleeves. I'm going to sink my teeth in. I'm going to really study these teachings and see if they actually lead to enlightenment like the Buddha said. So that's how you use your doubt to help you, is to be able to harness it and turn your mind into an inquisitive mind, where you now become inquisitive to be able to investigate and examine the teachings. And that's what's ultimately going to eliminate the doubt. Then there's something called wrong behavior and observances. What this is that in the unenlightened state, there's a certain amount of unwise moral conduct that an individual is going to have. And as long as you put out this unwise moral conduct, it's going to produce harmful effects. And now you're going to experience harm coming back to you. So by the time you eliminate wrong behavior, you would have cleaned up your moral conduct to a certain degree that you're not causing harm to others through what's called the Eightfold Path, the core central teaching of the Buddha. So you're going to learn tomorrow something called right speech, right action, and right livelihood. This is going to help you to understand the natural laws of how you could potentially cause harm to others, and now this harm is going to come back to you. But if you make decisions wisely where you're not doing those types of things, then you're not causing harm, so no harm is coming back to you. It's kind of like if an oil pipe had busted and it was spewing oil all over the world, you wouldn't go and like clean up the mess first on the floor. You would shut down the oil pipe and make sure that that's not spewing oil all over the world anymore. Then you go clean up the mess on the floor, right? So it's the same kind of thing, that you need to shut down the unwise moral conduct so that you're no longer being bitter and harsh and hostile and aggressive in your relationships. Because as long as you keep doing that, it's going to keep producing unwholesome results for you. So the Buddha teaches you how to eliminate that from your life. And by the time you eliminate your wrong behavior, you've eliminated this portion of this particular pollution or this fetter. The other portion of this is wrong observances. What this is that if someone has the belief that rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, or prayer is going to lead to improvement in their day-to-day life, then this is the mind having wrong observances. That the mind thinks that somehow if this person sprinkles water on me, that something beneficial is going to happen for me. Or if they tie a rope on my wrist, then wow, something great's going to happen for me. Or if this incense and smoke is blown in my area, or any kind of rituals or ceremonies, there's tons of them that are out there today. So if an individual has the belief in their mind that rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship is going to lead to some kind of beneficial result, they're not understanding the underlying problem that the Buddha discovered, which you're going to hear about when we get to the 10th fetter. This is the number one problem that the Buddha discovered, which is called ignorance, or the unknowing of true reality, the lack of wisdom. So what the Buddha is guiding you towards is the cultivation of wisdom. And there's no amount of rites, rituals, ceremonies, or worship or prayer that's going to produce wisdom for you. So if you're believing that those things actually lead to beneficial results in your life, you're never going to be able to do the actual work to cultivate the wisdom and then improve your day-to-day life. So whether you actually choose to do these things or not, that's a whole separate question. That's for you to decide, right? Like maybe you're with family and friends and they're going out to the church or the synagogue or the mosque or the temple or something like that. And you're just kind of with this group of people and you guys are going out there and now they're going to do a bunch of rites and rituals and ceremonies. And then you're going to go out to some other event, maybe go have food or something like that. And maybe you're just hanging out with the group, right? Now, if you go to this event, if you know in your mind that these things don't lead to any beneficial results, you've eliminated the wrong observances, right? But whether you choose to do them or not is a choice for you to make. So an individual who's eliminated this will know that it's not rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship that's going to lead to improvement in your day-to-day life. And oftentimes people have already eliminated this before they ever come and learn with me, because they know that I don't do those things, and that's why they might be coming to study with me. So you might have participated in these things before, and you still see that you experience sadness, anger, frustration, and all these other discontent feelings, that it's not going to lead to the cultivation of the mind to do rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship. Then there's something called sensual desire. What this is this is the way that the mind longs and yearns through your sense spaces. When it gets agreeable contact through your senses, you'll experience pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. But when you have disagreeable contact through your senses, you will experience painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. Your senses are the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, the body, and the mind itself. When there's agreeable contact, that's because of your sensual desire. You see this thing to be agreeable and you get those pleasant feelings. But when you see something to be disagreeable, then you're going to experience the painful feelings. So for example, if you were at a stoplight in your car and someone pulled up next to you with music, and you like this music, this is music that you listen to, you're like, oh man, that's my jam. All right, let's go. Come on, party, 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 right? You're so excited. You're so happy. But now, after that's over, you pull up to the next light. And now at the next traffic light, someone else pulls up to you with a different type of music, and you don't like this music. You find this to be disagreeable to you. Well, now you might be frustrated or angry or irritated or annoyed. It's not the music that's causing that, and it's not the person who's playing the music. It's your sensual desire, that your mind has this craving for permanently agreeable contact when you live in an impermanent world. You're not going to have permanently agreeable contact. So if your mind sees things as agreeable and disagreeable, that means that when you get what you want, you'll get happy and excited. But when you're not getting what you want, when you find something to be disagreeable, you're going to experience the painful feelings. So this is contact that's coming through the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, the body, and the mind itself. So maybe you're walking down the street and you walk past a flower shop and it's like, oh my gosh, look at those beautiful flowers. I can see those beautiful flowers. And oh, the odor smells so great. Wow, it's so wonderful. But now you walk a couple more steps and you get a whiff of the sewer. And you're like, oh, that's horrible. And you're kind of repulsed by it, right? That's your sensual desire. You can get to a point where you understand these things are impermanent. It's like, wow, beautiful flowers. They smell great. They smell outstanding. Wow, they're so beautiful. Now you walk a few steps and you smell the sewer. That's interesting. Let me keep walking, right? No need to be repulsed by it. No need to be angry. You understand that this is an impermanent situation, and now you just keep walking, right? You don't need to be upset or angry about it, right? So when you have sensual desire in your mind, you're going to have this favoring and opposing, where you're trying to pull in these things and you're going to try to push these things away. This is your sensual desire. Then there's ill will. Because when your sensual desire is being fulfilled and you're getting what you want, you'll get pleasant feelings. But when your sensual desire is not getting fulfilled and those painful feelings are arising, the mind will tend to attribute these painful feelings to something external. You'll think that it's some other person that's causing you to be angry. So maybe you think that person in the car who's playing the music, they're causing you to be frustrated or angry. That's what the unenlightened mind will think. And now your ill will arise, your anger and your hostility and your bitterness. Maybe you decide to roll down the window and give them the middle finger, or cuss at them, or yell at them, or tell them to turn down their music, or honk your horn at them, or something like that. That's coming from your ill will. The anger, the hatred, the bitterness, the harshness, the hostility, the irritation, the frustration, even dislike. By the time you get to enlightenment, you won't even have the slightest dislike towards another being. Right now, there's probably people you like, and then there's people you dislike. The people you like, they're doing things your way. They're meeting your expectations. But these people who you dislike, they're not meeting your expectations. They're not doing what you want them to do. This is the mind having sensual desire, that the mind thinks, oh, if everybody does things my way, I like them. But if they don't do things my way, I'm going to dislike them. This is actually coming from your own mind. It's not coming from the other person. So by the time you get to enlightenment, you will have eliminated sensual desire, where you understand impermanence, and you won't have this ill will, this hostility and bitterness towards others. So do you guys have any questions on any of these 5 lower fetters? Any things you'd like to ask? Yes, ma'am. If you, they all work. It's just that you guys tend to not be patient with them. They work. You just need to be patient. You can't have craving. Yeah.
I was wondering, the example you mentioned in the restaurant, that over a couple of tables away and people was discussing about your nationality, and when you hear that you feel discontent, can that be also a sensual desire because it's through the ear? It's
because you're wanting people to perceive you as a certain way, and now they're talking about your nationality. This is personal existence view mainly, but it's very rarely just one fetter that is actually being triggered at any one given time. There oftentimes is another fetter too. So sensual desire can be in there as well. And then that's where the ill will arises too. And now maybe somebody's bitter and harsh and hostile to this person who's talking about your nationality. So in that example, the primary fetter is personal existence view, but there is some sensual desire and potentially some ill will that's going to arise there as well. So any one kind of situation where you're becoming discontent, it's typically more than one fetter. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so I don't see any other questions here online. So let's move to the higher fetters or the upper fetters. Here, I'm going to talk about desire for form and desire for formless together because they're very similar. Okay, so desire for form is where you have a desire to be in the animal realm or the human realm. You're clinging to this existence, wanting it to be permanent, either this existence or the animal realm. Maybe you're like, wow, it'd be really cool to be a bird. I would like to be a bird and like fly around and look at the world from up here, right? So there's can be desire for form, which means you desire to be in this world and you want to be in this world, either as an animal or as a human. Then desire for formless is having the desire to be in one of the formless realms, like the hell realm, the afflicted spirit realm, which are ghosts, or the heavenly realm. It's more common for people to be interested in being in the heavenly realm, but there are people who want to be in hell. And there are people who want to be ghosts, right? This is called the formless realms, that they don't have physical form. Some people can actually see these beings, but they're the formless realms. They're formless beings. So if you have a desire to be in any of these 5 realms, hell, animal, afflicted spirits, human realm, or heavenly realm, this is a desire for form or desire for formless. And you need to get to the point where you don't have that, where you understand that life in this world is impermanent and that you're not craving permanent existence in the world. And by the time you eliminate these fetters, you won't have any fear of death. That oftentimes people have fear of death, that they don't want to die because they don't know what's next, perhaps. So they can oftentimes have a fear of death. By the time you have eliminated these, then you don't have that fear anymore. Okay? Then there's something called conceit. Conceit is arrogance and pride. This is the measuring and comparing that the mind does. Maybe you're looking down on people, thinking that you're superior to them, or you might make yourself be inferior, where you think you're below people and you're looking up to people with such awe and admiration. And if you have this in your mind, where you have this conceit, this is part of the ego, and you can't be peaceful and joyful in this situation because your mind is constantly trying to figure out who's above me and who's below me. You go into a social situation and you might be kind of measuring and comparing people to try to figure out this pecking order of who's above you and who's below you. And now you talk to the people who you think are below you in one way, and you talk to the people who you think are above you in a different way. And your mind's having to constantly try to figure this out. And now if you put yourself above people and you look down on people, you're also going to be putting yourself below people. So maybe when you go in and you talk to your boss, for example, you're shaken up by that. You're uncalm, you're unsteady, you're unstable. Or maybe you meet a famous politician or a celebrity and you're shaken up by that within your own mind. So as long as you have conceit, you can't be peaceful and joyful. Your mind's going to be shaken up at any given time. And you can't have harmonious relationships 100% by the time you, or while you have this conceit in your mind, because you're measuring and comparing people. You can't see people as they truly are and just love them as they are, because there's this ego or this conceit that's in the way. This conceit is coming from our animal existences. When we were animals, we actually needed this conceit, because if we were a pack of wolves, we needed to know who were the alpha male and the alpha female, because they're teaching us how to hunt, and we wouldn't know how to survive as a wolf if we didn't know who was above us in this pack of wolves. Or if we were in a herd of elephants, we needed to know who's the matriarch of our herd, because she's showing us where the migration paths are. She's showing us where the food is. She's showing us where the watering holes are. If we were just kind of roaming around the woods as a lone elephant, we wouldn't have known all these things that we learned from the matriarch. So we needed to know who's above us in the animal realm, and we needed to know who was below us. So now when we come into the human realm, we have this conceit in the mind, where the mind's trying to measure and compare people and trying to figure out who's above you and who's below you. So you're going to need to be able to get rid of this. And it takes time to gradually wear this away. It can take many years to wear this away. And it's standing in your way of having harmonious relationships and having peace and joy. So you're not interested in judging and measuring and comparing other people. Then there's something called restlessness. This is where the mind is confused, it has distraction, it's not able to focus and concentrate, right? You might be in class searching on your mobile phone instead of paying attention to the teacher when the teacher's talking, right? You can't focus, you can't be concentrated on what it is that you're doing. Your mind's always somewhere else, and the mind is oftentimes overactive. So by the time you eliminate this fetter, your mind can be completely calm and centered, and you can actually focus on the things that you're actually doing. Then the fetter of all fetters is called ignorance. I tend to not refer to it this way because this is a derogatory word. Referring to someone as ignorant would be to talk down to them in a degrading and diminishing way. Remember, we're translating the words of the Buddha into English, and people are oftentimes translating in a way that an enlightened being wouldn't actually speak. So I know that the Buddha wouldn't have referred to people as ignorant. But a better way to think about this is the unknowing of true reality, or confusion, or misunderstanding, or misperception. The mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. So for example, in the unenlightened state, it will firmly believe that other people are causing you to be angry. The mind firmly believes that it's other people who are causing you to be angry and frustrated. And it's because of its ignorance, the unknowing of true reality, the lack of wisdom. But what you're doing on this path to enlightenment is you're cultivating wisdom. That's why you can't believe the teachings of the Buddha. You need to be able to learn, reflect, and practice, because that's what's going to lead to your wisdom. That's what's going to transform this and eradicate this out of the mind. So you're going to need to learn things like the three universal truths, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the five precepts, the natural law of karma, the cycle of rebirth, meditation training, all these different teachings that you're learning. You're going to need to cultivate wisdom about them. That's what's going to lead to the transformation of your mind. But as long as the mind has this lack of wisdom, this unknowing of true reality, it will continue to stay in the unenlightened state. So that's why you don't believe anything on the path to enlightenment, and you investigate and examine it, reflect on it to verify it, and practice it. That's where you really see the true wisdom that the teachings are working. So any questions on these upper fetters, these higher fetters? No questions here? Okay. All right. So now, moving on, we can now start talking about the 4 stages of enlightenment. Because once you understand the fetters, now you can start to understand these 4 stages that your mind's going to go through as you're eliminating these fetters. I refer to them as the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th stage of enlightenment. And the mind is actually enlightened when you're in the 4th stage. But during the lifetime of the Buddha, he referred to it this way as stream enterer, once returner, non-returner, and arahant. And it's helpful for you to learn it in this way because there's a certain meaning behind this. So for example, he refers to it as a stream enterer because once you get into the 1st stage of enlightenment, you're going to get to enlightenment. It's only a matter of time. Either in this life or some future life, you're going to get to enlightenment. And it's just like a log enters the stream. It's going to eventually get to the ocean. It's just a matter of time, right? So a stream enterer is the 1st stage of enlightenment, and this individual will get to enlightenment, just a matter of time. And then a once returner, when somebody gets to the 2nd stage of enlightenment, if they die in that stage of enlightenment, they're going to come back into the human world one more time, and then they're going to get to enlightenment in that particular life. Then a non-returner, this individual, if they die in that 3rd stage of enlightenment, they're not going to come back to the human realm. They're going to be reborn into the heavenly realm, and then they're going to get to enlightenment from there in that heavenly existence. And then this arahant. An arahant is an enlightened being. This individual has fully purified their mind of the 10 fetters. They're going to be experiencing the peace and the joy that we've been talking about. They're not going to be reborn anywhere at all. So they would refer to this person who's purified their mind as an arahant, where today we would just say an enlightened being. And then there's something called a Buddha, which we were talking about a little bit earlier in our previous class, but I'll kind of refresh your guys' memory on what this is, and we'll talk about it in more detail. So the way to get to this 1st stage of enlightenment is to eliminate the first 3 fetters. There's other things that you need to do in order to be able to get into this 1st stage of enlightenment, but the main criteria is that you've eliminated the first 3 fetters: personal existence view, doubt, and wrong behavior and observances. And having eliminated those 3 fetters, your discontentedness will be significantly diminished. It's going to be a mere fraction of what it once was during your previous time when you were off the path to enlightenment. So you're going to notice that your mind's not getting as angry and frustrated and sad anymore. Your mind's come more to the middle. But in that first stage of enlightenment, you will still experience discontentedness. It just won't be as significant as it once was because you've eliminated some of the pollution. And again, if you die in this stage of enlightenment, you'll come back into the human realm, but no more than 7 times. So some of you guys might have been stream enters in your past life, and now you've come back into this human world, and now it's time for you to make your way to enlightenment, perhaps, right? So you would have eliminated these first 3 fetters. Then the once returner, they've already eliminated these first 3 fetters, but they've thinned out number 4 and 5, sensual desire and ill will. Thinning out a fetter means that it's not as strong as it once was. It's not as deeply rooted in the mind. So for example, if you're noticing that you're just not as interested in sex anymore as you once were, that's a very strong sensual desire typically, is sex. If you're just not as interested in it anymore, maybe you have sex, but it's just not as enticing as it once was. This is the mind thinning this out, sensual desire. It doesn't mean you're in the second stage of enlightenment, but that's typically what someone will start to experience as they're making their way on the path. They'll start noticing that there's things that they're just not as interested in anymore. If you think about when we were children, we thought chocolate and ice cream was the best thing ever. But now it's just like, if we get chocolate and ice cream, that's fine. I'll eat it, but it's not that big of a deal, right? But when we were children, oh my gosh, we just thought this chocolate and ice cream was everything. If we could have chocolate ice cream during the day or maybe 2 or 3 times a day, oh wow, that was a wonderful day, right? But now it's just like, take it or leave it. Right? No big deal, right? So that's thinning out your sensual desire. If you're noticing that you're not as angry as you once were, maybe when you were a younger kid, maybe you had a lot more anger and frustration about so many things in the world. Maybe you're noticing that's diminishing, right? That's what it means to be thinning out a fetter. And someone who's eliminated these first 3, they're a stream enter, but then that person will thin out number 4 and 5, and now their discontentedness has reduced even further because they don't have as much sensual desire and there's not as much ill will in the mind. And if you die in this stage of enlightenment, you will come back to the human world one more time and you will get to enlightenment in that existence. And again, some of you guys might have been a once returner in your past life, and now this is your opportunity to be able to get to enlightenment in this life. Then there's the third stage, which is called non-returner. If you die in this stage of enlightenment, you will be reborn into the heavenly world, and you will get to enlightenment in that existence. But here, what an individual has done is they've actually eliminated the 5 lower fetters. And this individual is rarely experiencing discontentedness. It's like once every 2 months, once every 3 months, once every 6 months. Very infrequent, and it's very insignificant when it occurs. Other people around you won't even know that you're discontent. It's just internally within your own mind. There's just like a little bit of uncomfortableness or ickiness. So it's very infrequent and it's very insignificant when it's occurring. So because of this, the mind can sometimes be a little bit complacent in the third stage of enlightenment, where it's like, whatever, just that little bit of discontentedness that's coming into the mind because it's so infrequent and it's so insignificant. But you still need to be diligent in this third stage of enlightenment and stay on top of your game because your mind's not enlightened yet. You're still experiencing some discontentedness. So having eliminated these 5 lower fetters, the mind will be in this third stage of enlightenment where you're rarely experiencing any discontentedness. And if you die there, you're going to be reborn into the heavenly realm and actually get to enlightenment there. But that's not the ultimate goal. That's not what you're looking to accomplish. What you're looking to accomplish is this 4th stage of enlightenment, referred to as an arahant. Or today, we might just refer to this person as an enlightened being. This individual has purified their mind of all the 10 fetters. There's no pollutions in their mind whatsoever. And they will see for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, no discontentedness whatsoever, not even the slightest ickiness in their mind. So this is how you'll know that you're actually enlightened, is that you won't experience any discontentedness in your mind. It'll be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. All your relationships are harmonious. Your mind's completely peaceful and joyful. You're not even experiencing a bad mood. It's physically impossible for you to experience a bad mood because all the causes and conditions that are producing it have been uprooted and eliminated out of the mind. And if you die in this stage of enlightenment, you're not going to be reborn anywhere. The Buddha doesn't describe what comes next for an enlightened being. He leaves it as an undeclared teaching. And this is wise that he actually does this, because it's not about getting to an afterlife. That's not what the teachings of the Buddha are about. It's not about some pleasant afterlife that you're going to get to. It's about getting to that wonderful life now. And if there was some pleasant afterlife after this, if he described that, then your mind would be longing, yearning for that. You wouldn't be peaceful and joyful in the present moment because you want this other thing that you don't have. So by the Buddha not describing what comes next for an enlightened being, then you can just focus on right now, today, getting to the peace and joy now in this life. So an enlightened being, an arahant, has eliminated all 10 of these fetters. Okay? So now let's talk about a Buddha. A Buddha is an arahant. They've completely purified their mind of all the 10 fetters, but they've done this in a unique way, that they don't have any teachers or guides. They figured out how to do it by themselves. Then they dedicate the rest of their life to sharing those independently discovered teachings with countless people. And countless people will get to enlightenment during that person's lifetime. Then they will preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people will get to enlightenment after their death. So these are the three main criteria of what make a Buddha a Buddha. And this type of individual is very rare in the world. That the last one that the world's currently aware of existed over 2,500 years ago. The thing that allows an individual to become a Buddha and get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides is this fourth criteria. This fourth criteria is that an individual who's going to become a Buddha, they have a profound memory, even in the unenlightened state. They have a deep, deep memory. They can remember countless details about their current life and their past lives too. So they accumulate all this wisdom into their last life, and they figure out how to get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. I gave you guys that analogy earlier in our previous class where I was talking about a hard drive. Like if you maybe think about your own life where you have maybe this hard drive of like 500 gigabytes or 1 terabyte. You have a limited capacity. And now if you think back to your childhood, you just have spotty memories where in the last 5 to 10 years, you can pretty much remember the things that you're doing, but your childhood, you just have spotty memories, because as you're experiencing new things, you need to delete these files you need to delete the old files in order to store these new files, right? That's because you have a limited capacity in your mind. An individual who's going to become a Buddha, they don't have that. They don't have a limited capacity. They can remember things in an unlimited amount. And that's how they accumulate all this wisdom to be able to figure out how to get to enlightenment in their last life. Then they can quickly determine the condition of someone else's mind by spending time with that person. They can see the fetters in somebody else's mind. This is the way that they're so effective at helping countless people get to enlightenment. Because as a Buddha spends time with their students and they see and observe the quality of their students' mind, they can then give them teachings that are going to help them to eliminate those specific pollutions from their mind. They don't do this in an unsolicited way. So like if a Buddha was walking down the street or at a restaurant and saw that somebody had these qualities of mind that are pollutions, they're not just going to step in and say, hey, by the way, you're talking harsh to your wife. You probably shouldn't be doing that, right? They're not going to give unsolicited guidance to people, but they use this quality to be able to help people who are studying with them. And this is one of the ways that they're actually really effective at helping people get to enlightenment. And then lastly, a Buddha is going to be a living, breathing, walking example of their teachings. They're going to have a deep practice of their own teachings. Whatever they teach, they're going to be practicing those same things too. So it's not like in a class, a Buddha is going to be teaching you how to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful, but then outside, they're going to be disrespectful to people. They're going to be impolite, unkind, unfriendly, disrespectful. That's not the way a Buddha functions, because they understand that they're teaching just as much through their spoken words as they are through their actions. So their actions are going to match to what it is that they're actually teaching. You're going to see that a Buddha is a living, breathing, walking example of their teachings, so that way their students can learn how to function in the world through these teachings that they're sharing. We refer to this person as a fully, perfectly enlightened one. this is a Buddha. The reason why we refer to them as a fully, perfectly enlightened one is because they don't have any extra baggage in their mind. By the time a Buddha gets to enlightenment, what they know about the path to enlightenment is 100% the path to enlightenment. So, for example, if a Buddha tries a certain meditation and it doesn't work to help improve the condition of their mind, they'll discard it. They know that it doesn't help to get to enlightenment. And now by the time they get to enlightenment, all they know is the path to enlightenment in terms of this path. And now they spend the rest of their life putting down lights along the side of the path, illuminating that path so that more and more people can understand what that path is. Where an average person who learns from a teacher who's not a Buddha, that person will actually accumulate some extra baggage. They will be doing a meditation or two, or they'll be doing things here or there that didn't really lead to their enlightenment, but they're still doing it because of this extra baggage, just out of respect for their teacher. So they might have 5%, 10% of things that are still sticking around that didn't lead to their enlightenment, but they're still doing it. They're enlightened, their mind is completely peaceful and joyful, but there's still these extra things that they're doing in order to be able to pay respect perhaps to their teacher. They're not actually things that led to enlightenment, but they're still doing them. So that's why we don't refer to the average enlightened being as a fully, perfectly enlightened one. Instead, we refer to a Buddha that way, as a fully, perfectly enlightened one. Okay, so any questions on the 4 stages of enlightenment or what a Buddha is?
You said that the stream enterer, actually, a person is in the stream enterer can reborn more times, right?
A maximum of
7. Yeah. And when this person reborns again, and he might have the personal existence, so he comes back to the initial point, and he needs to go all the way again, or he comes back from the point he stopped in the previous life.
So when that person is in the first stage of enlightenment and then they die and come back into the world, they are starting over, but because they learned in this teachings in a previous life, they will find these teachings more easily in their next life. They will find their way back to them, and then they will find it easier to be able to learn and practice, to be able to then get rid of those first 3 fetters because they've done it before. So they have a little bit more of that wisdom on board. So you're not starting right where you left off, but you do have the benefits of having studied in a previous life, that you've accumulated some wisdom that is kind of there supporting you to be able to find the teachings and then more easily understand them once you do find them.
Okay. Actually, I have a few questions, so if you don't mind. Mm-hmm. You also talked about, I think, the 3rd stage. He might reborn again, but in the heaven realm, right? Mm-hmm. So this person, if he dies at this 3rd stage, he might experience the heaven realm, and an arahant might not experience this heavenly realm if this person dies as an arahant, because he will not reborn, or we don't know what happens because Buddha didn't say. Mm-hmm. For me, it sounds a bit. It doesn't make that much sense because the heaven realm sounds for me a kind of a bonus or something good that an arahant won't experience.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so in the 3rd stage of enlightenment, if you die, you will be reborn in the heavenly realm. It's not you might be. You will be reborn into the heavenly realm. And from there, you're still in the cycle of rebirth. In the heavenly realm, you experience exclusively pleasant feelings. It's not the ideal existence because if you weren't a non-returner, let's just say you were an average heavenly being, because you can get into the heavenly realm even without being the third stage of enlightenment. You can still get into the heavenly realm. And in that heavenly existence, you're still in the cycle of rebirth, and you're going to need to get out of the cycle of rebirth, because you can attain enlightenment from the heavenly realm or the human realm. So in that heavenly existence, say someone was in there and they're not a non-returner, they're not a third stage of enlightenment, they're still in the cycle of rebirth, and they tend to be complacent in the heavenly realm. So that's not the ideal existence, that you still need to get to enlightenment. You still need to do work. And so those beings in the heavenly realm, because they tend to be complacent, they tend to be reborn back into the other realms, and now they got to keep doing the work over and over and over again. You can even be reborn from the heavenly realm down into hell or animal realm or afflicted spirits or into the human realm. This is all possible. So in the heavenly existence, it's not an ideal existence, because you're still in the cycle of rebirth. You still got to do the work to get out of there. And it's not a permanent existence. It's an impermanent existence, just like everything else. Now, as a non-returner getting into the heavenly realm, you will get to enlightenment in that existence. So you've done a lot of previous work, so you will definitely get to enlightenment. An enlightened being who's an arahant, it's not that they might not be reborn. They won't be reborn, 100%. They won't be reborn, not in the heavenly realm or any other realm whatsoever. But that individual may have been in the heavenly realm in some previous life. You don't know that, right? They might have actually in some previous life been in the heavenly realm. They've already experienced that. So they're not losing anything by not going to the heavenly realm, because by going to the heavenly realm, you're still in existence. You're still experiencing the cycle of rebirth. So getting to enlightenment, your mind is so peaceful and so joyful. That is above and beyond anything, including being in the heavenly realm, because the heavenly realm is not an ideal existence. You're still experiencing discontentedness there. Getting to enlightenment, there's no discontentedness whatsoever. I've heard some people refer to enlightenment as like heaven on earth, right? Like that's essentially what you're experiencing in your mind. It's like such a peaceful existence from that point forward. So you're not missing anything or losing anything by not going to the heavenly realm. You're actually gained something wonderful, which is this enlightened mental state. And now you're not going to be reborn ever again.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And another one, how is it granted the number of times that someone might reborn in each stage of enlightenment? So how is it granted that a stream enterer will reborn maximum 7 more times?
It's based on your own decisions. So it's not anybody who's granting it to you. It's your own decisions that are leading to that particular result. So if you could, let's just say you've never studied these teachings ever in any previous life. You could actually find these teachings in this life, learn and grow and develop. First stage, second stage, third stage, fourth stage. Now you're enlightened, done. Some person could do that, depending on their dedication and their determination, their commitment. They could go right on through in that particular life. But some people, depending on their decisions and the way they make decisions, they might get to that first stage and they might actually die. Let's just say somebody doesn't find these teachings until they're, 90 years old, and they only have maybe 2 or 3 more years to live. And now maybe they get to that first stage of enlightenment and then they die, right? So that is a situation that could occur. So each person is making decisions, and that person who didn't find the teachings until 90 years old, potentially they had the opportunity to learn and practice the teachings earlier in life, but they chose not to do that. So it's our choices that are leading to any particular result. And now when they come back in that next life, they have an opportunity once again to be able to get to enlightenment. But it all depends on your dedication, your determination about how many lives you're going to need before you get to enlightenment. But you don't have to be reborn, 3, 4, 5, 10 times, or you can't be born 10 times, but 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 times as a first stage of enlightenment in order to get to enlightenment. You could actually go right on through in that one particular human life.
Mm-hmm. But my doubt is, how did Buddha know that it was a maximum of 7 times, not maybe 8?
I see. So the Buddha was able to see his previous lives and he knew what he experienced in his previous lives. That's how he figured this out, is that a Buddha has deep memory about their current life and their previous lives too. And an average person, you could actually potentially experience memories of your previous lives as well. So usually as somebody's training their mind, they have more of a potential to experience this. But have you ever experienced deja vu? Do you know what that is?
Yes. Yes.
So those are residual memories from your previous lives coming up to the surface of your mind. And usually what people do is they just push them aside and they just kind of ignore them. But this is your previous memories from your previous life. This is an indication for you that you've existed in the past, because we've all had countless existences in the past. But a Buddha's memory of those past lives is going to be much deeper than just a little bit of deja vu here and there, right? So this is one of the ways that you can independently verify the cycle of rebirth, is through experiences of deja vu.
Okay. And when you say that Buddha didn't need any teacher or any master, but when we read his story of life, he studied with some, I don't know if I can say teachers or masters, but he studied with some people, no?
Yeah, so he studied with these first two teachers, but what they taught him didn't lead to enlightenment. That's why he went off on his own. So his total journey was 6 years. In the first 2 years, he spent time with these two teachers, and they were spending time teaching him to hang himself upside down from trees, lay on beds of nails, pierce his body with metal implements, starve himself. The thought was that if you could cause physical pain to the body and your mind could overcome that physical pain, you would get to enlightenment. So he did this for 2 years, and it didn't lead to enlightenment. So he left and went off on his own. So the teachings that he ultimately shared weren't those teachings. The teachings that he ultimately shared were the things he figured out on his own. That's what led to enlightenment, not those things.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, we're getting lots of rain here. Rainy season is just holding on, doesn't want to let go. All right, so now, we have a question here on YouTube. 1 second. Okay, let me see here. We have a question here. I've got these old eyes. It's kind of hard. Okay. Hello, teacher. This is from Linda. Hello, teacher. I wonder which part is reborn if everything is transient, which essence returns to a new life. If it isn't the soul, as I've always believed, then what is it? And then there's more here. And as the enlightenment takes his knowledge of wisdom to the next life, how does this happen? Where is the knowledge stored? Okay, so let me help you with that, Linda. Okay, so let me put the mic back. So we call this the cycle of rebirth. The word that is used in the original teachings of the Buddha is samsara. Okay. And what people have been doing is they've been translating this as the cycle of rebirth. In my opinion, this isn't the best way to translate it, because if you look at the way the Buddha talks about this samsara, he talks about it as a new body and a new mind every single time. It's a new body and a new mind every single time. So it's really the cycle of new existence. That's really what's happening, that it's a new body and a new mind every single time, because the body and the mind are impermanent. It's not the same one from existence to existence. And the Buddha doesn't teach that there is a soul, and he doesn't teach that there isn't a soul either. He leaves the soul as an undeclared teaching. The way that an individual moves from life to life is that they're a completely new individual from each existence. And let's just say we have a fire that's burning, and this fire has logs on it. And these logs are the fuel that's fueling this fire. And as long as there's logs on the fire, it's sending off sparks into the air. And when these sparks go off into the air, the wind is carrying it. And when it lands, it ignites a new fire. It's not the same fire. It's a completely different fire, but it came from the spark of the previous fire, right? So this brand new fire is now burning and raging, completely new fire, right? So the fuel that is fueling that spark is craving, desire, attachment, which you guys are going to learn about more tomorrow. That's central desire. The craving, desire, attachment is the fuel. And what you're doing is you're extinguishing that fuel so that then there's no more sparks. But if there is fuel at the end of this life, if there's craving, desire, attachment in the mind, that's sending off a spark. Now, this body and this mind is done. It's deteriorated. It's impermanent, but there's still a spark. There's craving, desire, attachment, and now it ignites this new mind. And now this new mind needs to find a body. So the egg and the sperm come together inside the womb, and now here comes the mind inside the womb, and now we have a new being. So the way that things move from one life to the next is, think about like a cardboard box. There's cardboard box A and cardboard box B. Cardboard box A is a certain size, certain color, certain shape, certain texture. And inside that cardboard box has certain contents. And now at the end of this life, this cardboard box is going to dissolve. The cardboard box is the mind, right? And there's certain contents that are in the box. This cardboard box dissolves, but there's still contents. Those contents need to find a new cardboard box. So they end up going into cardboard box B. Cardboard box B is a completely different color, shape, texture, size, everything's different. But the contents are from the previous cardboard box. This is how an individual can remember their previous lives, that it's a brand new mind, but it has contents from the previous life. So if you get to the end of this life and you still have contents in your cardboard box, they've got to go somewhere. The cardboard box is going to dissolve, but those contents need to go somewhere. It's going to go into a new cardboard box. But by the time you get to enlightenment, you've purified your mind. You don't have any of those contents anymore. So now there's no cause and condition to produce the next cardboard box. So this is how rebirth is occurring. We call it rebirth, but it's really the cycle of new existence, because it's a new existence every single time, a new body and a new mind every single time. And it's the condition of your mind at the time of death that is going to determine if there is rebirth, right? So it's not like somebody's looking over your life and judging whether you are a good person or a bad person and then sending you to a good place or a bad place. It's what's the condition of your mind at the time of death. And now if there's contents in the cardboard box, meaning the mind still has pollution, there's going to be a new cardboard box. There's going to be a new mind. But if you get to the end of this life and you've purified the mind and there's no more contents in the cardboard box, well, there's no more cardboard box. It's just done. The life is over. Right? So this is how you can understand the cycle of rebirth or the cycle of new existence and how this is all occurring. This is something that's beyond what we talk about in this class, but I share it with you since the student online asked the question to be able to explain it. Okay? All right, so let's see if we have any other questions here. All right, I don't see any other questions. So now let's talk about how to determine that you're not enlightened. This is a way to help you understand what enlightenment is, because understanding what something is great, but by understanding what something is not, it'll help you to understand what something is. So one of the best ways to know that your mind is not enlightened is you'll still experience discontent feelings, meaning conditioned feelings. Conditioned pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant. When I say conditioned pleasant feelings, I mean that based on some condition, your mind will then be happy. Right? Remember, in the enlightened mental state, your mind's beyond this. You're experiencing unconditional happiness. That in the unenlightened state, you can only be happy if these things are occurring. If my bank account is here, I will be happy. But then when it goes here, you're sad or frustrated. Or if it's sunny outside, you'll be happy. But then if it's raining, you'll be sad or frustrated, right? That's conditional happiness. By the time you get to enlightenment, you don't have that anymore. You have unconditioned happiness, unconditioned joy. No matter what's happening in your day-to-day life, you can maintain your joy. Even if your mom died, you would still be able to maintain your peace and your joy. You're not happy because mom died. You're happy despite the fact that she died. The fact that she died is just impermanence. She was born, so she had to die. Your mind's not holding on and craving for her to be permanent. Where in the unenlightened state, you'll experience grief and sorrow and sadness. It's not the love that's causing that. It's the mind holding on. So by the time you get to enlightenment, you won't experience, any of these discontent feelings as conditional feelings. But your mind will have plenty of happiness, plenty of joy. It's just that it'll be unconditioned. There doesn't need to be any condition for it to be experienced. If you have a craving, desire, attachment to tell other people that you're enlightened, if you're going around bragging to people that you are enlightened, you're not enlightened yet, right? So if you're ever somewhere and someone rolls up to you and they're like, hey, come here, I got to tell you something. You're like, what is it? Don't tell anybody. I'm enlightened. You know that person's not enlightened, right? Because they're bragging, they're boastful, they're going around arrogant and telling everybody that they're enlightened. Well, how could you be enlightened if you're arrogant and prideful and bragging and boastful, right? So an enlightened being isn't going to put on their Facebook profile, I am enlightened, right? I am an enlightened being. You're not going to see that from a truly enlightened being. So if somebody's peaceful and joyful, if they've gotten to enlightenment, then just go be peaceful and joyful. You don't need to come around here and tell us that you're peaceful and joyful. Just go be peaceful and joyful, right? So an enlightened being isn't going to go around bragging or showing off the fact that they're enlightened. So if you see someone doing that, or if you're doing that, you know that your mind's not enlightened yet. If you notice complacency in your mind, where you're dull and lethargic, you're lacking in vigor, vitality, ambition, motivation, a willingness to do something. If you're lacking initiative, then you know that your mind is not yet enlightened, because the mind still has complacency. So an enlightened being is going to have ambition, enthusiasm, vigor, vitality. They're going to take initiative to go out into the world and do things, right? So if you notice any kind of complacency in your mind, you know that you're not yet enlightened. Okay? Any questions on this? No questions? Okay. You're welcome, Linda. I see you said thank you there. You're welcome. Pleased to help you. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to end our class for this morning. It's basically 12 o'clock. This is our lunch break. Feel free to take a break and have some lunch. If you're going outside and you'd like to go in the rain and get some food, you're more than welcome to do that. But remember, you have Grab food too. You can order food to come in. If the rain's too heavy and you're not interested in going out for food, you can order food. And if you don't have Grab, I can help you guys to get some food if you like. So you're welcome to hang out here and eat. We have tables outside. You can go outside and eat. We're going to start back at 1:30, where I'm going to be teaching you guys Buddhist chanting and how to do the Buddhist chanting. We're going to do this together, and we're going to ultimately do a meditation session together this afternoon as well. So enjoy your break, whatever it is that you choose to do, and perhaps I'll see you guys afterwards to teach you guys chanting at 1:30. Okay? Take care and be well. Mm-hmm.